Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over two different ways to balance equations. So there's going to be one method that I suggest you start with, and once you get really good at this, you might be able to move on to the other method. Okay, so the first method I'm going to show you is called the inventory method. Okay, now when we're balancing an equation, our goal is to get the same number of atoms of each type on each side of the equation. So it's balanced with the same atoms on both sides, right? Because we know that matter can't be created or destroyed. So this oxygen atom is not just going to disappear. So in the inventory method, we make a list of all the different types of atoms we have in the equation. So in this equation, we have hydrogen and we have oxygen. And we have that on both sides of the equation. Now, this equation is not yet balanced. We're going to figure out how to do that. So what we need to do is count the number of hydrogen atoms on each side of the equation. So currently there are 2 hydrogen atoms on the reactant side of the equation, which is the left side. So I'm going to write 2, all right? Also on the reactant side of the equation, we have 2 oxygen atoms. Now currently on the right side of the equation, we have 2 hydrogen atoms, okay? And we only have 1 oxygen atom. So since those are different, this equation is not balanced. Now you might be tempted to say, oh, well, I'll just put a 2 here. No, you can't do that. You can never change a subscript because when you do, you change the identity of the substance. So H2O is water, H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. So we can't change the subscript. Instead, we're going to use coefficients to change the number of molecules. So I'm going to put a 2 in front of H2O. And when I do that, that means that I have 2 water molecules. So if hydrogen looks like this and oxygen looks like this, 2 H2O means I have this. So that means that I now, if I have 2 of those, have a total of 4 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygens. Okay? Now, it's still not balanced because now I have more hydrogens. So what can I do to fix that? Well, I can put a coefficient in front of this hydrogen. So when I put a 2 here, this is H2, but now I have 2 of them. So now I have 4 total hydrogen atoms, okay? Now, these are 2 separate molecules. So the 2 here only applies to the hydrogen because these are separated by a plus sign. This is 1 molecule. So over here, the 2 applies to the hydrogen and the oxygen because I'm saying I have 2 water molecules. Let me do one more example to try to make that clear. So let's say that I had barium chloride plus sodium iodide makes barium iodide plus sodium chloride. Now this looks like it might be really complicated, but when we break it down with an inventory, it's not so difficult. So I have barium, chlorine, sodium, and iodine, barium, chlorine, sodium, and iodine. All right, so currently on the left side, I have 1 barium, 2 chlorines, 1 sodium, and 1 iodine. On the right side, I have 1 barium. Now, these aren't in the order they appear on the right side, but I like to put them next to each other from left to right because it makes it easier to compare. So I got to go find chlorine. I have 1 of those. I have 1 sodium, and I have 2 iodines. So these don't match up, and these don't match up. So I'm going to start, doesn't really matter where I start, okay? I'm going to start by putting a 2, I'm going to balance the chlorine first because that's the first one I see. So the way to do that is to put a 2 in front of NaCl. So now on the right side, I have my 2 chlorines. I also have 2 sodiums. Okay, so that's good, that's good. These are not balanced. So I need 2 sodiums and 2 iodines on the reactant side. When I put a 2 here, I now have 2 sodiums and 2 iodines. So now this equation is balanced. Now the second method is called balancing by inspection. And that's just a fancy way of saying figuring it out in your head, okay? So for example, if I have H2 plus O2 yields water, again, I might look at this and say, okay, well right now hydrogen's balanced, but oxygen isn't. So I'm going to put a 2 here to balance oxygen. Now I have 4 hydrogens, so I need a 2 here to balance that. So it's basically the same as the inventory method, you're just kind of doing the inventory in your head. So I recommend starting with the inventory method, and as you gain confidence, then you can go to balancing by inspection. Some people always use the inventory because they want to be extra sure, and that's fine. Some of you may have done this in 8th grade, so you might already be pretty comfortable with this. And if you are, it's fine if you go straight to balancing by inspection. But I recommend starting with the inventory method, and if you're stuck, just call me to your group and I will happily help you out.